Welcome to the day 4 of the 44th National Team Championship 2025. As you guys know, I lost the first game against the Grandmaster, I won the second game, I lost the third game, and I won the fourth game, a crushing win. So today is the day 4, I'm playing against a 2 to 3-7 rated player, I'm playing with the black pieces. It's a very interesting game, so yeah, let's begin. So my opponent is playing with the white pieces and he decides to open the game with 1d4. I replied with knight f6, bishop to f4, we have the London system on the board, and now we have e6, e3, and I went for the move c5. This is one of the ways to play against the London system. Like the most common ways, like nowadays people are trying to play d5, knight f3, c5, and this guy is a player who usually takes on c5, and maybe I should have went for that line, but I decided to play this particular setup with c5, knight f3, I took on d4, ed4, and now I decided to play the move b6. You can say it's more of a Queen's Indian setup against the London, which can be very healthy for black. We have knight e2, bishop goes to b7, developing the bishop on a nice diagonal. We have bishop to d3, bishop to e7, h3. So first of all, making a square for the bishop to go on h2 maybe. I decided to play the move d6, short castle, and now we have the move rook to e1. So white is trying to play some basic chess, simply castling up, putting the rook on an open file, developing the pieces, and etc and etc. We have knight to d7, and now we have bishop to h2 by white, simply going back with the bishop. Okay, I believe bishop h2 is a fine move here. White is just trying to take precautions with e5, maybe knight d5 attacking the bishop. That makes sense. We have bishop h2, and now I went for the move a6. We have a4 by white, which is a common way to play with the white pieces. White is trying to block my b5, which makes sense. Like if you ask me what is the idea of black, I would say my idea is to play queen c7, bishop c6, queen b7, and try to put pressure on this particular diagonal. And there could be some ideas with e5 breaking in the center. So white tries to play a4, and now I simply played the move rook e8, and now we have a5. So a5 was kind of a new move to me, I personally felt. Like after a5, white is just trying to attack the pawn on b6, and now there are many moves that are available that were going through my mind. Like a logical response was simply b cross a5. But after b cross a5, I thought like simply knight c4, which attacks the d6 pawn and also the a5 pawn. So yeah, I thought maybe after knight c4, maybe I could have simply went for, I don't know, maybe just knight b6, protecting the pawn. But now white can simply snatch the pawn on a5 with the knight, and the knight is nicely placed on a5, attacking the bishop. So personally speaking, I didn't like this option. So I went for the move b5, because if I just give a free hand to white, he would love to take on b6, and he is already having this open a5. So I decided to play the move b5. We have c4. This is the move that I was thinking about, because if white gives me one more move, I would love to play the move d5, and c4 is a move that can never come in the future. We have c4 by white. I decided to take on c4, and now knight cross c4. And now I believe this is a position where white is having the dynamic advantage, where I playing with the black pieces having the static advantage, the long-term advantage. Because as you can see, white is having the isolated d pawn, b2 pawn is a weak pawn, because I'm having the semi-open b5. a5 pawn can also be some sort of a weakness in the future. But for now, in the current position, white is having the dynamic advantage, as he's currently attacking the d6 pawn. Sorry about that. Wrong diagonal. So yeah, and the b6 square is also weak, and yeah, many things are happening up. So after knight c4, I was thinking to play the move queen b8, trying to defend that pawn on d6. But I was thinking like, okay, after queen b8, how can I even continue the position? I can never push the d pawn because my queen is hanging, and white can just keep his pieces as it is, because I need to defend the d6 pawn. But actually, it turns out to be black is having a perfectly fine possession. For example, if white tries to continue with maybe queen f4, I can simply play even bishop f3 is a good move. Okay, so maybe queen d1 is not the best. Okay, let's take maybe rook a3, just trying to get the rook into the game. I can simply play bishop c6 or bishop d5, and believe me, the rook is coming to c8 and black is absolutely fine. So I would say it was a bit wrong assessment by me, and I decided to play knight to b8. At the first glance, it looks like a useless move, and even the engine agrees. But my idea was to put the knight on c6, which could be the best square for the knight, which attacks the d4 pawn, which attacks the a5 pawn. And also at the same time, I'm protecting the d6 pawn with the bishop and the queen. That makes sense. And after knight b8, my opponent decided to play the move knight to b6, attacking the rook. I went for playing the move rook a7. We have knight to d2, and believe me, personally, I did not saw the move knight to d2, but knight d2, believe me, is a very strong move in the position, with the idea of putting another knight on c4. And yeah, after knight d2, I was kind of clueless, having no idea, because now the knight is simply jumping on c4. So I decided to play the move knight to c6, which to me looked like a pretty fine move. Because, like, for example, if white tries to play any random move, like currently I'm attacking the d4 pawn. So for example, if white simply tries to defend it with a knight b3, I'm already having a very strong move, simply knight f5. And this was my idea, simply attacking the a5 pawn. And now it doesn't matter however you capture the knight, I can simply capture the knight on b6, and I'm already a pawn up. White is having weaknesses, and I'm already better. But actually, now white played the move queen f4, and this was the move that I simply missed, because now he's simply defending the pawn with the queen, which would simply defend the knight as well, and also queen on a4 also defends the pawn on d4. So basically queen f4 was a great move by him. And now after queen f4, I was kind of clueless, having no idea. I was not feeling like pretty happy with my position now, because it's already pretty hard to play with the black pieces. I decided to play the move knight to d7, simply coming back with the knight, with the idea of maybe e5, maybe simply attacking the knight on b6, maybe bishop f6 can be a good idea. We have knight c4, and now I decided to play the move knight cross b6, knight cross b6, and now I played the move bishop f6, and already at this point, like only in 20 moves, I'm already having, like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 minutes on my clock. And now opponent decided to play the move rook c1, and once again rook c1 is a move that is simply missed, and it's a very strong move in the position. After rook c1, white has got all his pieces into the game, first of all, and second, it looks like I can simply capture the d4 pawn, but that's not possible. In the game, I went for the move knight cross g4. For example, if I go for simply capturing the pawn with the bishop, now white's idea is to simply capture the knight with the rook, sacrificing the rook for the two minor pieces, which is a very good position for white. And now he's having the bishop pair, and not only the bishop pair, but a very strong knight on b6, which is completely winning for white. And if I don't really capture the pawn on d4, white's idea is still the same. He wants to take on c6. And to be true, I can't really defend the knight as well. Yeah, that's the main problem. It's very hard to continue the position. So I decided to play the move knight cross g4, and now we have bishop cross g6. This was the move that I definitely saw. Basically, I cannot capture the bishop because I'm losing the rook on e8. And now, already having no clue, I decided to play the move e5. Maybe the idea could be to play rook e6, because, like, I don't know, if I try to play bishop e7, white is already having bishop c7, which traps my queen, which is insane. So yeah, I decided to play the move e5, rook c7, rook e6, attacking the bishop. We have rook to d7, queen e8, and now queen to b4. And now, already playing on seconds, I played extremely bad chess with the knight c6. A better approach would have been to play the move e4, which is a very strong move. Definitely I saw this move, but after bishop c4, I was like, okay, the rook is getting attacked. I cannot move the rook because the f7 is falling apart, so this should be winning for white. But here, black is having knight c2, which attacks the queen and the rook. After queen d2 takes. Okay, white will not take the knight, but simply take on e6. And black is having this knight f3 check, gf3, fe6. And still after bishop g3, which is the only move for white, white is somehow better, which is an insane line. So it's not really possible. So I decided to play the move knight c6, attacking the queen. The queen went on c5. I decided to play the move bishop d8, already playing on seconds, like 5 or 10 seconds. Bishop c4, attacking the rook. Now I'm already aware that I'm completely losing the game. I played the move rook f6, defending the pawn. Bishop e5, bishop b6, a b6. Queen takes the rook, and now bishop cross f6. And this was the move that I missed. I thought he can try to go for capturing the rook. I can try to play maybe, I don't know, maybe just take, and though it's still losing for me, but yeah. But bishop f6 is a very strong move, because the point here is I cannot really play rook 8, because now white is having queen g5. Checkmating on g7, g6, queen h6, and that's the fourth mate. So I decided to play the move g cross f6, and after ba7, knight e5, we have take. I cannot capture the bishop because he can make the queen. So I played the move king g7, takes, rook e5, takes. And after queen e5 check, I decided to resign the game in only 35 move, because it doesn't matter whatever I do, he's having this queen b8 with the idea of making a new queen, and the game is over. And the point here is I cannot even go for giving him any checks, because this particular diagonal is already covered by the queen. So that was the reason I decided to resign the game. A very strong game played by my opponent with the rating of 2-3-7. I would say he simply crushed me against my own opening, which is insane. So yeah, this was the, I don't know, maybe just round number 5. So now let's try to jump into the round number 6, which was the second round of the day 4. Okay, so now we have the game number 6 of the round 2. I'm playing with white pieces. My opponent is having the rating of 1831. I started with 1d4, c5, d5, and now we have f5. Okay, this opening name is Old Benoni Defense. Yeah, it's sort of I don't know, it's some ancient line or something. I personally thought that he might go for something like maybe b5 or even e6, maybe Benoni, but he went for the move f5. And actually, I have already seen this position. I have already played a game with the white pieces against this very similar position. I decided to play the move c4. Maybe knight c3 is a much better move, but okay, we have c4. Knight to f6, knight c3, g6, and now I decided to play the move e4, sacrificing a pawn, f3, sacrificing another pawn. And believe me, this is a pretty fine position for white despite sacrificing a pawn. As I know, I've already played this particular opening, this exact opening, so I'm having no fear. He played d6, I played bishop d3, bishop g7 castle. Basically, the point of this particular opening here is, by sacrificing a pawn, I'm having a more space in the center. My pieces are very well developed, having an open f file. The e7 pawn is extremely weak, and I believe this was a good idea. My opponent castled up, and now I played the move knight g5. Makes sense. Knight s6, and after knight s6, like I'm already like kind of frustrated after the game, after the morning game. After knight s6, I'm thinking that my opponent's idea is to simply play knight g4, with the idea of playing giving a check. The king goes to h1 and knight f2, where I have to sacrifice my rook, and that's losing, right? And like I want to stop knight g4, and the best move in this position is to simply play h3. Just stop knight g4. Your knight is well placed on g5, and that's a fine move. But you won't believe me, but I'm just not able to see the move h3. And I decided to play the move bishop to d2, simply developing my bishop, allowing him to play knight g4. This is insane. This is some insane chess. I knew that knight g4 is coming. I could have stopped it with h3, but I allowed him to play this, and now we have knight f3, kind of the only move I believe, stopping bishop d4. That makes sense. Knight b4 attacks the bishop. I went back with the bishop, and now we have e6. Maybe e6 was not the best. Maybe knight e5 is much more precise, attacking the knight. And here, black's main objective should be to trade off as many pieces as possible, as he's already pawned up, which is going to make him the profit in the end game. But instead, he decided to play e6. So first of all, I decided to kick the knight. developed my bishop trying to connect the rooks. Knight c7, putting pressure. First I decide to kick this knight back, so we have knight e5. I trade off the knight, queen e2. So to be true, I'm kind of frustrated in this particular moment. I'm a pawn down. My opponent is already starting to trade off pieces. And yeah, I knew I'm already worse. We have ed5. I decide to play move bishop h6, bishop g7. We have a trade. Rook f8, queen f8, rook f1. And now I started to feel a bit comfortable in this position. Queen e8, queen f2, queen e7, cd5. And now still I'm a pawn down, but at least I'm having much better development compared to my opponent. So feeling quite fine. Bishop d7, rook e1, queen goes to f8. Obviously I cannot trade off the pieces. Rook e8, knight to e4, sacrificing one more pawn on d5. But now we have rook f1, which attacks the queen. Queen e7. Finally we have knight cross g6. And after knight cross g6, to be very true, I was already feeling pretty happy, pretty confident. Rook f8, we have a rook trade, and now I decided to take on b7. Knight to e3, attacking the bishop. I gave a check, and now we have bishop f5. Believe me, bishop f5 I believe is kind of the only move. If he tries to play something else like king h7, I don't know, my idea was somehow bishop e4, which practically seems pretty hard for black to continue the possession, because currently I'm simply attacking the knight. If the knight tries to go back, I can already give a check and capture the c5 pawn with the knight. So he decides to play bishop f5, and I took the bishop and played g4. And I'm like, okay, now maybe I'm winning, maybe. Queen e1 check, queen f1, because if king g2, he can give a check. And okay, yeah, queen d2 check is the only move. And if king g1, he can repeat. That's fine way. And if I try to play queen f2, queen d5 check, which attacks the king and the knight. Yeah, so that's the reason I played the move queen f1. We have a trade, and I was like, okay, now I'm winning a pawn. But I actually missed this idea that I'm also losing a pawn. So I took the pawn, and now actually after knight cross b2, my opponent offered me a draw, but I simply denied the draw by playing the move king f3, king e7, king e4, king f6, h4. And to be true, I felt like maybe this is winning. h5, g5, king goes back, king e4, king d5. You can see I'm having more space on the king side. My king is much more advanced. My knight is much betterly placed compared to his knight and the king. We have a5, and now I played the move a4, which was not the best way. I was having some slight chances according to the engine. King c6 would have been much better. But I was like, maybe knight c4, and maybe knight c4, and if I just try to get the king over here, knight cross a3 yeah. So if I try to play a5, just knight e5 check, the king goes over here, knight f3, and maybe the position can get a bit more risky for me. So that's why I decided to play the move a4, simply stopping every counter play. And now I'm like, okay, now just let me get the king, capture the pawn, make a queen, and that's how I'm going to win. So we have knight d1, king c6, knight c3, king b6, king d6, and I'm like, okay, now something is going wrong. I cannot capture the pawn because I'm losing the knight. And now my opponent's idea is to simply get the king over here, capturing these two pawns, trying to make the queen, and basically sacrificing his knight for this pawn. That makes sense. So I played the move knight d3. We have king e6, I took the pawn, came back with the king, he sacrificed the knight, I gave a check, captured the pawn, and now we have this position. So make sure to tell me in the comments below, what do you think about this position? Is this a draw or is this a win for black? Now I'm going to reveal the answer. So after king g5, I decided to play the move knight e5. So I wanted to ask my opponent if he wants to offer a draw, but I believe like he wanted to try. So I played the move knight e5. We have king f5, because if he tries to push the pawn, I can simply give a check and sack the knight. So he attacked, I simply played knight f3, covering the square. He tried to attack the knight, I simply played knight h4, king over here, knight g6. He played king f5, gave a check, gave a check, gave a check, and now we have knight g6. He cannot really push the pawn, and now he tried to come along to try to capture the knight, and now I simply got the king. And now I simply played the move king d2, and now as you see, the king is in the box of the same pawn. So now it's a draw. So after king e2, we both agreed to a draw because, as just to let you guys know, it's a draw. Yeah, it's a draw. So yeah, that's why we agreed to a draw after around 65 move, which was insane. Definitely out of the opening, I believe I was better, but due to some one or two bad moves, I lost all my advantage and my opponent got better. But eventually, in the middle game phase, I tried to do my best and maybe convert that disadvantage into an equalish possession. In the end, I thought that I was winning, but it was a draw. So a very nice defense by my opponent, and the game ended in a draw. So definitely the fourth day did not ended well because I lost the morning round, the round number 5. I drew the 6th round, the game number 2 of the day number 4, which is fine, yeah. So yeah, these were the 2 games. So I hope that you guys got a bit idea about how I'm thinking during the game of chess. So yeah, I hope that you guys must have enjoyed these analysis. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to come up with these more insightful chess knowledge that I believe might help you to improve your chess. So yeah, I'm going to come up with these more interesting videos like this. So thank you for watching. I'm going to see you soon. Bye bye.